Hello everyone, Pineapple here with our finale of the spooky month. In preparation for season 2 next year, we're taking a look at Wednesday, a show with a lot of famous names among the Addams and among the crew. Music by talented Danny Elfman.
I love little girls, they make me feel so good.
And allowing some of producer Tim Burton's style without letting him go crazy, like in some films that turn people away. Him also directing all 4 of these first episodes. There was certainly a decent shift with watchers, thanks to the show being front and centre on Netflix, with a new take on the very popular Addams family right after a duology of movies that turned people like me away with its take on the characters. Maybe one day I'll check them out, but I'm a much bigger fan of what little I've seen of the original, and the first duology of movies. And this has a different tone, but the characters are very reminiscent of those we know and love. Of course, with a few changes for characters' ages and looks. And there is a strange subset of people who watch this and want to bang this version of Lurch. This show has a very similar teenage mystery theme that popular shows have been using for decades now, and while being quite creative in some spots, really drops the ball in other respects that we'll talk about as we go along. But the main issue is that for a seemingly popular show, it should not take 3 years to release another 8-episode season. I will always praise Only Murders in the Building, for not only its longer episode count per season, but its releases every year, even with bigger names than this show has. As with streaming, series are becoming less important than movies. Stars like Jenna Ortega doing many movies, and shows like Wednesday seemingly only produced when all actors are free, instead of actors signing on for shows and doing films in the rest of their time. Meaning that a lot of characters, for that reason or legal ones, aren't returning next season. Really doing a disservice to the show, just dropping half of the side and incidental cast being a really bad decision. And instead introducing more big names like Billie Piper, Joanna Lumley and Christopher Lloyd. So of course, I believe the strikes messed up production, but surely without it, it still would have been a 2-year wait. Which for that long should also be a product of obstruction. 1.5 years, surely a more stomachable wait for such a high profile production. Right, that's enough about my gripes with the show's production and the streaming scene as a whole. Let's get into episode 1 of Wednesday. Wednesday's child is full of woe.
Yeah!
We get a pretty solid opening scene with Wednesday, played by Iron Man 3-star Jenna Ortega. Yes, that is the last thing I saw her in, making some snarky comments about the American education system. Jenna does pretty well to make this version of the character her own, similar to the iconic, but there are a few differences, such as age, Wednesday being a teenager in this one. But her reluctance to blink and ability to keep her expressions and voice monotone work very well, and show that she's put effort into the character. The main difference I'd comment on is, well, I guess the best word for it is arrogance. Due to growing up the way she did, her personality and being right in the teenage years, she thinks very highly of herself. And while having impressive powers of deduction,
I call that the science of deduction.
She just keeps guessing with what clues she has, not waiting for the whole picture to unravel, only getting it right just before the reveal. This can lead to some frustration with the character, both from the audience, Enid, and her love interests. But it all comes across as believable, and she isn't the only character to be an antagonistic asshole at times. She rescues her brother, Pugsley, who is also different from previous incarnations, being quite the nervous, bullied little brother played by Isaac Ordonez. While untying him, she has a seizure-looking vision, which we learn she's been having lately, much like her mother, allowing her to see the culprits, who she sets a group of piranhas upon, showing us our first smile from this version of Wednesday. Her usual stone-faced nature making all emotions she shows pay off a lot more with such simple expressions, as they happen so rarely. We then get to see the opening credits, and while I skip it, so it's not amazing, the visuals are tied in well and look quite nice, and the theme song matches the tone rather well and isn't a slouch in the audio department. But it's just not a banger or iconic, it's just there and kinda neat. After that, we get a nice scene in the Addams car, introducing the rest of the main family we'll be seeing, bar Thing. Morticia, played by Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Gomez, played by Louise Guzman. Gomez probably looks the most different in the roles, not having the same energy the character has had previously, but nails every other part. While Morticia is pretty much the same as I remember, and their all over each other attitudes haven't changed either. Morticia's relationship with Wednesday is probably the most explored in the season between Addams, and while it adds nice layers to Wednesday feeling trapped in her new school under the shadow of Morticia's old accomplishments, But due to the family's lack of screen time compared to the other characters, it feels a little out of nowhere. And looking at the rest of Wednesday's character, not something you really think she'd care much about. When her drive seems to go into writing and investigating, things Morticia seemingly isn't connected to. Which could be the point, but it just feels like the plot point is a little disjointed. This new school is called Nevermore, in the town of Jericho, where Gomez and Morticia met. They're reminiscing, making Wednesday sick.
You guys are making me nauseous. Not in a good way.
The School of Nevermore and the town of Jericho have their own history that is explored well, but with them comes a whole new world of info, such as the type of students that attend Nevermore being the outcasts, opposite of normies. The outcasts including vampires, psychics in multiple forms, werewolves, and more, which are balanced quite well into making a world that the Addams would be a part of, instead of this one ooky kooky family that the rest of the world just has to deal with. We get a nice little cutaway to set up the danger as a local, played by Carolyn Laurie, who I just heard in Cry of the Vultress a few days ago, drops a hitchhiker, and their dialogue not only sets up the town's iffy relationship with the outcasts, but also another general attitude. It's decently well done world building without making it terribly expository. But the hiker's happy attitude is cut short as he is presumably ripped to pieces by a monster as he has a coffee break in the woods. The Addams make it to Nevermore, and while not as iconic as other magical boarding schools, it looks good aesthetically, even if the grounds themselves aren't as fleshed out as they could be. They are met by the principal, Larissa Weems, played by everyone's favourite wasted stormtrooper, Gwendolyn Christie, who has an iffy relationship with the Addams, being overshadowed by Morticia in their time together at Nevermore. Weems seems a little reluctant while the Addams' parents try to keep everything running smoothly. And as Wednesday is accepted, we learn the court ordered her some therapy. I wonder how well that'll go. And now we are introduced to the best original character of the show. Wednesday's opposite in many ways, Enid Sinclair, a peppy girl covered in rainbows and the school's self-titled gossip queen, played with a great personality by Emma Myers. She's instantly friendly with Wednesday, really wanting to be friends as I'm sure Wednesday contemplates suicide.
Welcome to Ophelia Hall. Not a hugger. Got it.
Due to an apparent colour allergy, Wednesday gets her own black uniform and Enid informs her on the social scene, taking Wednesday's eccentricities in her stride. The scene is shown well, in the quad, which Wednesday rightly points out to be a pentagon. The main groups are shown off, being the Fangs, which are vamps, and I like the detail that they all wear sunglasses to shield their nocturnal eyes from the sun. The Furs, all werewolves, like Enid. The Scales, or Sirens, with top bitch Bianca Barclay, played by Joy Sunday at the head, who is losing popularity due to her and her sad-looking boyfriend Xavier breaking up. And the last, the Stoners, who are high all the time and happen to be Gorgons. They're introduced as one named Ajax comes to give Enid warnings about Wednesday.
Enid, you're not gonna believe the dirt I heard about your new roommate. She eats human flesh. Totally chowed down on that kid she murdered. You better watch your back.
Now done with introductions, Wednesday says goodbye to her family in her own special way, and Morticia gives her a small pendant as a gift, as she basically sums up the series as,
"You're a brilliant girl, Wednesday, but sometimes you get in your own way."
So she leaves a crystal ball to call on, and the Addams skedaddle, dropping Thing off to keep an eye on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the sheriff, played by Jamie McShane, is shown around the mangled remains of the hiker from before, assuming the perpetrator to be an outcast, like a few previous attacks, but is resolute in following the mayor's narrative and calling it a bear attack. Wednesday starts antagonizing Enid, who bites back. We even get a good look at her powers and a funny little dance that the internet seemed to like, but not the most popular dance the internet got on from this show. And I really like that for aesthetic purposes her claws are painted the same garish colours that her nails are. The two squabble is interrupted by teacher and dorm mother Miss Thornhill, played by 1991 Wednesday Christina Ricci. And it's really good to see when shows do this, like the seemingly never-ending cycle of Kryptonians' parents that get played by older actors of Superman, Lois, etc. But it also makes her stand out as the biggest name that becomes a suspect. She seems nice enough and explains how to get to the town, and the next day Wednesday finds herself in fencing practice, immediately going jab to jab with Bianca, verbally and physically, saving Sloucher Rowan. The thing I found myself appreciating in this show is that Wednesday never seems too superhuman in these fights. Sure, she's agile, but she's also small, using proper-looking techniques against her opponent to make up for her stature. Mostly believable. And the choreography is good too, but in a nice balance against her arrogance, she loses from a scratch in their duel after going no masks as a tiebreaker. We also get a nice look at minor characters like Yoko watching, doing what she does best, sitting in the background. Seriously, my biggest gripe in the series is that side characters like Yoko, Kent and Divina get around less than 10 lines combined, and apart from the vampire, we have no idea if they're coming back. Which is weird because so often Yoko is next to or mentioned by Enid, but is never more than another body. It's just fucking weird. We never even learn about her relationship with Divina. Sure, they hang out a lot, but it took the actors confirming it online for confirmation. So this is just the start of the show wasting its side cast. Seriously, it pisses me off. Wednesday gets patched up and comes across Rowan again, who according to him is much like her. Too weird for the outcasts. He even wears glasses and has asthma. But as she leaves, Wednesday is straight back in the infirmary after a gargoyle targets her, only saved by Xavier. Apparently he knows her, having met her years ago. You know, I really hope this character is in season 2 and that the actor, Percy Hines White, isn't accused of essaying someone, in her dorm again, Wednesday finds Thing watching her. And I love the Thing effects here. Seriously, he's a great addition to the show. She threatens him into submission and decides to escape the town, taking the opportunity of her therapy to make an escape, but she unfortunately does have to go, meeting Valerie Kinbot, played by the half of Garfunkel and Oates that always plays hateable characters, Ricky Lindholm. And the character is a nice red herring, but mostly just annoying. Wednesday gets sick of the therapist after some death staring, so makes an escape to get a coffee, meeting barista Tyler, played by Hunter Doohan. They have nice chemistry, even though look at Wednesday, she doesn't exactly scream straight. And she fixes the steaming coffee machine in exchange for a ride out of town. Weems is told Wednesday did a runner, while the girl in question is assaulted by some racists, who she mouths off to and beats up. And I don't know why it's so funny, but the mayor's son, Lucas, has the most childish, angry face. It's hilarious. The fight draws the attention of the nearby sheriff, who happens to be Tyler's dad, and has a thing against the Adams, calling Gomez a murderer. But Weems is able to take Wednesday back. We get a really nice catch-up scene as Wednesday plays Painted Black on her cello, and we get to check in with the other characters, the most notable being Rowan using powers to take a book, ripping a drawing out of it. Enid finds Wednesday for a talk, and they have a nice little heart-to-heart. Enid telling Wednesday about her trauma, it being a full moon, but her not being able to transform like the other wolves. And Wednesday unable to console her, but does tell a nice story attempting to explain why she is the way that she is, as bullies killed her pet scorpion, her closing her heart out from that day forth. A bit cliche, but a decent attempt. Wednesday uses Thing to contact Tyler, him going to take her away at the upcoming fair, displaying his strained relationship with his father. Xavier runs into her again, but the convo goes nowhere as Tyler basically teleports between them, and Wednesday plans her escape. But after a nice reference to the Addams theme and some shit ADR, they're chased out by the normie racist from before. Wednesday smacking into Rowan and having a vision of his death as he wanders into the forest. Wednesday following, confusing both boys that are lusting after her. Rowan seems at wit's end as Wednesday tries to help him, so he snaps and uses his power to pin her against a tree, having tried to kill her before with the gargoyle, and the picture that he ripped out earlier having been done by his deceased mother, claiming Wednesday would destroy the school. But before he can kill her, the creature that's been doing the killing eviscerates him, leaving Wednesday with the page, now happy at Nevermore with a mystery to solve. A pretty solid first episode, but also warning us of a couple failings to come. Now on to Woe is the Loneliest Number. The cops scour the forest but can't find anything, and the sheriff tells Weems as such, with some casual racism, but once Wednesday asks to speak to the sheriff alone, identifying it as a cover-up, who should walk through the door but Rowan, making Wednesday look like an idiot and a liar. On the whole, Rowan's cover-up is a good point in the mystery, but it relies on a lot of people being steadfast assholes. The sheriff not finding anything suspicious, and the person posing as Rowan having an in-character, but weak motive. The time on the therapist's psychopathic clock, seriously I hate this thing's design, frees Wednesday, who runs into Tyler, also in therapy, who wants to check up on her, but believing her. Back at Nevermore, Enid and friends are painting a canoe. Ooh. Another Yoko scene where she doesn't even get a line of dialogue. We get some nice dialogue from a deliriously happy Enid as she spots her totally plutonic roommate.
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
Yes, I am going to be making jokes about this the whole time. Did you hear about the novelization? Apparently it's Gay City for these two.
Or you can just glare uncomfortably. Whatever works for you.
Enid is skeptical of Wednesday's claims, and she even begins to doubt herself, but thanks to Enid is pointed towards Xavier, being Rowan's roommate. And the whole canoe thing is explained by Enid as being for the Poe Cup. Yes, apparently among the school's alumni is the Poe himself. And it's a boat and foot race with no rules, Bianca having won far too many times due to her tricks. Wednesday is still struggling but comes upon a watermark, but once going to Weems to speak to Rowan, she's informed the boy was expelled for no particular reason, and Weems susses out her psychic vision's involvement, due to an episode she had in episode 1 but mostly hid, and thanks to her slight grudge against Morticia, warns her away from her visions. In a 180 of her frosty inquisition, Weems shoots her out, forcing a list of clubs on her. Bianca is apparently in the first club, having a siren a cappella group, with a very ironic lyrical sense. Hold on, if Divina and Kent are vocalizing, does that technically count as lines? Yeah, that's how desperate I am for these characters to have screen time. Next, Wednesday heads to the archery club to see Xavier, who tells her Rowan was having a mental breakdown, and then starts probing into her love life, warning her away from Tyler, as Weems creepily watches, because that's a normal thing for a non-murder suspect to do. Wednesday's next stop is the beekeeping club, meeting the Hummer's leader and only member, Eugene, played by Musa Mustafa. A little nerd archetype, but he's nice. Wednesday seems a little into it, but Thing warns her Rowan is leaving, so she confronts him, but only gets ignorance as Thornhill drives him away, with Thing following, losing him in a bathroom as the doppelganger changes their form and eventually settles back into their body as Weems. Not suspicious at all. In class, Wednesday is frustrated with Thing losing Rowan, and with the Sirens together and Enid with Yoko, she's stuck with Xavier, who displays his abilities to draw and animate the picture. Bianca is jealous of Wednesday sitting next to her ex, I guess, because she keeps looking at the goth and then starts competing with her in class, while Thornhill acts as one of those teachers too eager to be down to earth with the kids. And back to the whole gaze thing, why does Divina repeatedly look at Wednesday like that? Tone it down, girl. I jest, obviously, but it's impressive that, unlike Yoko with her glasses, Joanna Diaz-Watson manages to get across a lot of personality and facial expressions alone compared to how little presence the writers give the character otherwise. We get a quick cutaway to the sheriff who gives his dog more attention and love than his son, as he tries to get Tyler to open up, but in one of the worst ways possible, being a douche and alluding to a dead mother. Wednesday needs Enid as a decoy, but she won't unless Wednesday has a heart-to-heart with Thing, which is just as stilted as you'd expect, but it's nice to see her open up even if slightly. So Enid is hit on by Eugene while she freaks out about the bees, and Tyler almost immediately grabs Wednesday like a creep to keep her safe from the sheriff, but doesn't find any more than Rowan's glasses. But luckily, she gets a vision, showing him finding the drawing in a secret library and him flipping out and attacking Xavier. Wednesday starts looking for a book she saw in her Rowan vision, scouring the library but is interrupted by Thornhill, who manages to tell her about an old society, the Nightshades, who seem to be up and running in the school again after many years of disbandment. Thornhill tries to get close to Wednesday, and she does have a unique perspective, being a normie, not an outcast, but lamenting that she doesn't seem to fit into either, causing a nice little heart-to-heart. Boy, I hope Thornhill's perspective is explored and she doesn't just end up being a cackling racist villain. Oh, wait. I'll say now that having Thornhill played by Christina Ricci did make me suspicious she would be at least an antagonist, due to the novelty of it. But even if I make light of it now, the story behind it is interesting and well unravelled, but it is at the cost of what a sympathetic character she could have been with this supposed backstory. To find evidence, Wednesday sneaks into Xavier and Rowan's dorm, finding a mask hidden under the floor, but is almost caught as Bianca comes to see Xavier, eavesdropping instead. We get some natural exposition, Bianca jealous of Xavier's crush on Wednesday, and eager to humiliate her and Enid specifically. We get the little tidbit that the reason they broke up is that Xavier got paranoid that she was using her siren song on him. An interesting relationship, but the show doesn't use it to its best, most of their scenes being separate. And what we do get between them is nice, it's just a plot thread the show pushes to the wayside when dealing with either character. Xavier more focused on Wednesday, and Bianca more focused on the fallout of her and her mother's relationship later on. Heading back to her dorm, Enid is freaking out as Yoko has come down with a case of garlic poisoning, which is a clever joke, and Wednesday vows to take her place and stomp Bianca. And totally not for the freaking out roommate who is literally wearing the lesbian flag.
Wait, you're joining the Black Cats? You're willing to do that? For me?
I want to humiliate Bianca so badly that the bitter taste of defeat burns in her throat.
Yeah, but mostly you're doing it because we're friends, right?
The cup has literally no rules, so Wednesday gets to work against Bianca, and the race comes, Enid forcing Wednesday into a catsuit, which I remember some of the internet being pretty happy about. But I'm just distracted by Divina again. And I find it funny that there's one team we know nothing about, as of the 4 male students we know, Kent is helping Bianca from the sidelines, Eugene is in the audience, and both Xavier and Ajax are on the same team, so I can definitely narrow down which team is getting murked first, as Kent hides in the water and crushes their boat against a buoy. Wednesday figures them out and deploys a net, and as she runs for the flag, Thing helps Enid sabotage the other male team. Wednesday loses her lead on Bianca as touching the crypt of the local lauded pilgrim who spent his time murdering outcasts, Crackstone, she is forced into a vision, meeting a distant relative of his time, also played by Jenna Ortega, Goody Adams, who warns her of some mysterious prophecy of her being the key. Cliché, but a fine enough hint for the story. On the way back, the Jokers sink, making Enid proud.
I just asked myself, WWWD. What would Wednesday do?
Oh, not this shit again.
Yeah, I can.
By all rights, Bianca should win, being so far ahead, but Wednesday deploys more weapons, ripping into their boat. Once Thing delivers the smackdown onto Kent, letting them take the lead, winning the day, both Enid and Wednesday being happy about it for a while. But Wednesday goes back to her shitty self, as Weems goes on about how proud she is of their win. Wednesday wants a break from it all and finds the Nevershade logo on a statue of Poe himself, while Weems starts driving the knife in, comparing Wednesday to her mother, being the last winner of her dorm. But she must feel at least a little good as Bianca sulks while Divina rips into Kent about his fuck-up. By the way, I'm calling them by their names thanks to a wiki and a cast list, but looking at the transcripts, we haven't heard their names at all. So without the extra research, they'd just be an extra siren boy and girl, which is telling in how the show can fail its sidecast. The episode ends with Wednesday doing some clever sleuthing, solving a pretty clever riddle, allowing her entry into the Nightshade's secret library with 2 snaps. And yes, it is coming close to too indulgent in the whole how did Han Solo get his name kind of shit we see in movies today.
What's your name, son?
Haunt.
What?
Haunt.
Who are your people?
Haunt.
But I like its reuse here. It's such an iconic part of the Adams that would otherwise not get used here, so its inclusion and reworking seem to at least have some creativity behind it. And she is pretty easily kidnapped once finding the right book. We pick up where we left off with episode 3, Friend or Woe. These puns are a little hit or miss. Wednesday immediately susses out her kidnappers, just the popular kids playing Secret Society. Wednesday catches them up on the page, with Kent finally getting his first proper line, showing off how much of a himbo he is, and holy shit, the lesbian couple also get their first proper lines. It only took till episode 3, although I do recognise that Divina did get a little hushed line last episode, but it didn't really count. Rowan was apparently long kicked out of the society, and after some simping from Xavier, Wednesday determines she's getting nowhere, so easily circumvents their offensive attempt at a kidnapping.
It's amateurs like you who give kidnapping a bad name.
The next day is Outreach Day, where the students work with those in the town, ending in a joint performance in celebration, while Weems starts making offensive comments.
As representatives of our school, I trust you will all put your best face forward.
Enid is hoping to be paired with the Gorgon Ajax that she seems to be crushing on, and Weems tries to butter Wednesday up to play Fleetwood Mac during the performance. Wednesday talks to a sulking Xavier, who on the flip of a coin goes from adamantly refuting Wednesday's claims about Rowan to starting to get suspicious, probably because among all his complaints he's too focused on having the hots for Wednesday. Wednesday once again proves her visions are telling the truth, and gets the confirmation the other figure she found in the rest of the drawing is the town's famous founding pilgrim Crackstone. We cut over to the sheriff and the mayor, the sheriff too critical of the outcasts, but the mayor, who we learn was the sheriff back in Gomez and Morticia's days at Nevermore, is too happy to have the outcasts due to how Nevermore helps keep the town running and on the map, especially since he owns the other biggest attraction in the town that their presence is helping him earn money from. The lesbians go back to being basically mute side characters, and learning where Ajax is, Wednesday manages to get into Pilgrim World by swapping assignments with Enid, who is all too happy to. The mayor's Pilgrim World is an impressive spectacle, but also boring as fuck, and run by this uptight role player. Wednesday wants to get into Crackstone's meeting hall to find something useful, while Enid is stuck in the creepy second-hand store filled with taxidermied roadkill, while Ajax fails to notice her flirting. Wednesday gets scathing at the tourists while the bullies from before start beating up Eugene, both before and after he manages to throw up on them. Wednesday pretty coolly kicks their asses, even if it could have been shot a little better, so the mayor's son skulks away like a bitch. We got to the mayor again to see him thanking Weems for all the moral bribes, and she parades Thornhill around as their excellent example of community and unity, but the mayor seems to think he's met her before, but even with such a paragon of unity beside her, Weems quickly shoos her away to Wednesday duty. Still such a bitch. Wednesday helps Eugene clean up, the correlation to her brother being a good dynamic, and in return she makes him help her sneak into the meeting house. Managing to find a painting of Goody from her visions, and when finding Goody's book, gets frustrated that it's only a replica. The RP are getting Bianca to snitch on Wednesday. But only with conjecture, so I suppose it's snitching adjacent? So they're caught, Wednesday learning the real book was here, but was stolen. A homeless man steals a camera from the secondhand shop right in front of Enid, but she's more concerned with getting her flirting through Ajax's thick skull, even if he manages to blunder into topical conversation topics and complimenting her. The dynamic is nice in spite of Ajax just being the biggest dumbass possible sometimes, his temperament living up to his clique title of stoner. But come on, no way these two are an endgame couple.
I mean, he could get off.
Ajax, I have spent all morning flirting and hinting and trying to act cute while brushing some roadkill just so you would ask me on a freaking date.
Oh!
Wednesday appears in the coffee shop to see Tyler, much to Xavier's dismay, and gets the location of Crackstone's original meeting house from the local boy, along with some warnings, and offering to help her go out there, but she has to get it done now, or Weems would have her head for missing the big Fleetwood Mac tribute. As she heads there, I'm tempted to criticise this episode for its ambiance. It looks good, and due to the possibility of a passing storm is feasible, but for all these scenes being so close together, and at roughly the same time of day, the main town, the forest, and Pilgrim World all have very different skies and hues. It's strange and a tad off-putting once you notice it. Tyler was correct as the hobo from before tries to push Wednesday out of his territory, only to be beaten up by Thing. It's nice comedically, but terribly acted and blocked. After some testing and comedic performance, Wednesday manages to summon up a vision, showing her ancestor Goody being beaten by a pilgrim mob, led by our first proper appearance of Crackstone, played by William Houston, who for being the main villain and such a figure of history in the town, I wish got a little more building up, but the guy does have a good screen presence while he's here. Goody gets a nice cut-in and a monologue with an accent that I unfortunately don't buy from Jenna, but she manages to escape the meeting house as the pilgrims burn it down with all the local outcasts inside, as she's the only one not chained down. Wednesday wakes up in the mud and rain, spotting the creature in a terrible rip-off of a Resident Evil 8 jump scare, and while tracking the creature's feet morphing into human feet, she runs into Xavier, as the rain washes her evidence away. He's still a sulky bastard, but confirms with Wednesday that due to some dodgy texts, Rowan is definitely dead. And although they've all been proven right, he tries to warn her off her visions, saying they're notoriously unreliable, his dad being a famous psychic. But the rest of the show proves his broad strokes of his argument wrong. So why does this guy like Wednesday again? He just keeps scoffing at her when she disagrees or tries to ignore him, and then continues to follow her like a lost puppy. No wonder she'll assume he's the creep down the line. The celebration starts as the mayor spouts a bunch of pretty lies about Crackstone and unveils a statue of the man, only for Thing to coolly light a match and send the whole thing up in flames. Wednesday, the only one to stay still, switching from Fleetwood to Vivaldi, pissing Weems off extremely as the statue starts to melt and the crowd scatter. It's a pretty nice scene of chaos. Weems spends her time screaming at Wednesday, who truthfully uses wordplay to refute any wrongdoing, having let Thing do all the work. She verbally lambasts Weems about covering up the Pilgrims' atrocities in history, for all of this happy camaraderie BS. It's written well, but doesn't get either of them anywhere. Meanwhile, that homeless man is back in the meeting house, getting got by the creature, but the stolen camera somehow going off to take photos of the thing, for the sheriff to find at the end of the episode. Enid is psyched for her date, dressing stylishly, as Wednesday gets a nice fourth wall joke. And we get another round-robin scene like with Paint It Black in episode 1, as Wednesday monologues and we see Thornhill making her way to the Nightshade Library, Ajax dumbassly stoning himself, making him absent for his date, Enid eventually lashing out in a compelling display of emotion, while Weems drunkenly takes her insecurities from Morticia out on her old yearbook. Finally, we learn that the therapist is the psycho making the roadkill artwork. Tyler is pulling an Owen from Torchwood, and Xavier is even more suspicious with claw marks on his neck. Another pretty solid episode with some stylistic choices I didn't like. and some annoying character moments. Looking at you, male love interest 2 and 3. One frustratingly whiny the whole episode, and the other clichéing himself out of a night with Enid. Now on to Woe and Night. Thing and Wednesday break into the coroner's office, Wednesday checking the deceased for clues, while Thing copies files of interest. But as Thing humorously works as lookout, they both have to hide, as the coroner and sheriff have a conference, showing that the creature also seemed to cut off and take some toes. And of course, the coroner is only a day away from retirement, so odds are we won't be seeing him in the near future. Wednesday escapes suspicion with a clever gag and takes the evidence back to their room, where she promptly traumatizes Enid with them. Later in class with Thornhill, Xavier tries to cover up his injuries almost as suspiciously as possible, and Bianca drops this episode's focus, the Raven. A dance. Due to his suspicious nature, Wednesday goes snooping around in Xavier's shed, only to find image upon image of the monster. Each piece actually looking quite good, but she's intercepted on her way out, Xavier now suspicious, not letting her in, and not buying any of Wednesday's excuses, assuming she's here to ask him to the Raven. And although it takes her a while, she does end up asking, and he accepts, but Enid is far more excited than her, pumped to take her roommate out dress shopping. Wednesday wishes to stay far away from the stores that Enid wants to go to, her eyes landing on a black dress in the second-hand shop, but she takes a detour to show the sheriff a drawing from Xavier, but needs more evidence before he can do anything about it. Back in the coffee shop, Enid is spending her time with the may as well be mute lesbians, but they're interrupted by the mayor's son here to ask Enid to the Raven. Much the same as Tyler does to Wednesday, which becomes a bit of a mess. Her not liking Xavier in the first place, and him being shitty that the whole mystery thing is taking precedence over their love life. Enid won't let Wednesday keep the murder board in their room, so she takes it to the Hummer's shed, where Eugene starts helping and even asks her to help him put the moves on a certain werewolf. Eugene helps her get a step forward, finding the cave the monster's been depicted in, which is styled quite nicely. But their biggest lead is that the creature has been chained up in here, Wednesday finding what seems to be a claw of its, with an expression I wasn't sure I'd hear from her.
Yahtzee.
With this new info, she heads to Sulky Boy's shed to find a DNA match, taking a bloody rag, presumably from the cuts on his neck, as Xavier interrupts her again. She starts interrogating him. The claw marks from his mojo, which allowed the creature to come out and cut him. He realizes he was duped and sends her away, so she heads straight to the sheriff to run DNA tests. He's reluctant, but does so anyway. Wednesday, now dateless, asks for Eugene's help to stalk the monster's cave, and Bianca takes her chance to get back with Xavier. Thing is doing some meddling of his own, as he writes an invitation to Tyler for Wednesday. And we get to see the Raven, the style and set actually being pretty good. The teachers talk together, Weems trauma dumping and then ditching Thornhill, telling her that Morticia stole her date back in the day. Wednesday is ready to head out, but manages to turn things around as Tyler appears at the door. I mean, I think he's a little suspicious, but he ain't the sharpest tool in the shed anyway. Thing continues being the best wingman by getting her that dress from before, which is very Wednesday. And of course, Eugene decides to come around at that exact moment to be abandoned by Wednesday for Tyler. I mean, it's Thing's fault. Maybe he should help. But she warns Eugene off, promising to do it another night. Enid's Raven fit is great, and gets just the most awkward scene between her date and Ajax, as Bianca tries to keep Xavier's focus on her, which lasts for all of 5 seconds as the goth enters. And in reaction, holy shit, Divina and Kent get lines. It's a Raven miracle! Much like the mayor, Thornhill seems overly familiar with Tyler, as Enid tries to broker peace between Wednesday and Normie Boy, which goes about as well as you think. Xavier starts talking about Tyler and Wednesday again as the mayor's boy seems to be hatching something nefarious as he gets closer to Enid. Outside, Wednesday and Tyler have a heart-to-heart, Tyler apparently being a ruffian some time ago and taking it out on the tortured artist, doing some serious self-reflection in the time past, comparing their violent pasts. It'd be cute if he wasn't just that little bit creepy. Now, of course, we get the most mainstream scene from the show, Wednesday's dancing. Some absolutely batshit, some apparently referencing the classic Addams, while Enid, the Sirens, and Weems enjoy themselves at the sight, and Tyler just kind of exists without knowing how to handle it. More interestingly, as Enid starts to dance with the Nightshades, Xavier asks Bianca to use her siren song to make him forget about Wednesday. Jesus.
Tell me, you didn't just say that.
Is Eugene the only not asshole, not imbecile teenager male in the show? Enid's date has disappeared to the back of the dance as some other normies attempt to pull a Carrie. He changes his mind, but barely. Meanwhile, a silhouette makes it to the creature's cave where Eugene decided to investigate on his own, but he's spotted the culprit burning the cave, and any evidence they might find. We get another interesting scene as outside the Raven, Bianca and Wednesday have a little respectful heart-to-heart. I guess the area outside the Raven is just made for that. And it comes off pretty genuine from both of them. They have nice differing points of view, and Bianca finally gets some proper appreciated material beyond annoyed popular girl. Eugene runs from the culprit but gets jump scared by a Henry Parsley song. And everyone gets on the dance floor for Dua Lipa, allowing for some nice character gags and the gays dancing together. Look, I'm taking what I can get from these side characters, sue me. The normies hatch their plan, which Wednesday is almost happy about until she learns it's not real blood. But Weems and most of the other students start really freaking out, like, come on, it's not a fire, walk in an orderly fashion. But Wednesday sees a vision of Eugene getting attacked, Thornhill getting worried, while Xavier and Tyler have a little dick measuring contest. Enid finds out about her date and the asshole's with him. He almost goes all, but I learned the better of my ways. But Ajax ends up scaring the assholes off, which leads to a great scene of Enid confronting the idiot stoner, him coming clean about why he never showed up to their date, but Enid's too happy so they start macking on each other ASAP. Wednesday almost beats the monster to Eugene, but by the time she and Thornhill make it, he's pretty worse for wear, leaving the episode and mid-season off on a pretty sad note. So those were the first 4 episodes of Wednesday, a pretty solid start to this season. And we'll be checking out the last 4 episodes next week. Please like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, ring the notification bell so you're told every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next review. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.